We're standing under the Landscape Evolution Observatory, or LEO, L-E-O. This is the flagship research project of the University of Arizona. The University of Arizona has been doing research here since 2007, and the space that we're standing in and the space that these giant research slopes were built in is where people living inside in the early 1990s grew food. Now later we'll show you the crushed soil up top, but again, the reason Biosphere 2 is valuable is because we can do things at a large scale, but with a level of control that's like a laboratory. You may have heard of models. There are physical models like these hill slopes, there's computer models, and all these models are valuable because they let us understand more about how we can use science to ask and answer questions. We can break down problems into smaller pieces and then understand the components and then see if we can go and test those things out in the natural world. What we're doing here is we're taking crushed volcanic rock and we're watching it turn into soil over time. Every time we add water to the system, the properties of the soil change. There's chemical weathering, there's physical weathering, there's carbon sequestration, which is the rock holding on to carbon. And we're really trying to understand the intersection of a whole bunch of disciplines. Water, carbon, nitrogen, energy, microbiomes, microbiology, genetics, all these things are part of this project to understand how water, energy, and carbon move through systems. And if we understand the details of these systems better, then we can make better predictions about how our planet is going to change as climate changes, as water changes, as temperature changes, and all these other variables change around us.
So this here is what we call mini LEO. This is a replication, a small-scale replication of these larger slopes. So what they're able to do in this kind of experiment is first test out some of the concepts they want to test on these larger slopes without interfering with the science that's going on the larger slopes, but able to do it on a smaller scale before they scale it up to the big ones. So some things that they're able to do on this smaller slope is, for example, they want to put plants on this larger slope. Before they put it on the large slope, they're going to try it out on this slope first because they can excavate it, redo the experiment without impacting the experiment too much. They're able to do it on the smaller scale to really look at the implications of manipulating some of these variables, such as adding vascular plants to a system. You can see there's this clear casing over the slope. That's creating an atmosphere, so they really can see what's going on, what kind of conditions are being released, what kind of conditions can be maintained inside of this atmosphere to really monitor the system well. So these here are the wires that are connected to sensors underneath this slope. So they have all kinds of different sensors in the system to really look at what's going on in the soil, how much water is in the soil, what kind of carbon dioxide and oxygen interactions are happening within the soil. And they're able to track all of that using these sensors within the depth of the soil here.
I'm standing under one of the 3 Landscape Evolution Observatory hill slopes. And above me you can see the details of how these hill slopes work. Wrapped in foil is one of 10 load cells or scales that each of these slopes sits on. So as part of understanding the water cycle, we can weigh how much each of these giant hill slopes is changing as we add water and water leaves the system by running out of the bottom or evaporating. We also have the clear box where we're able to pull vacuum samples of water or air in between the soil molecules so we can measure what's going on in the soil at different depths and at different parts of the hill slope. And then the black wires represent 1,800 or 1,800 sensors that are buried in the hill slope from the top to the bottom and from the surface down to a full meter deep. The combination of all this instrumentation and the ability to control how much water we add, what the temperature is, allow us to better understand all the things we've been talking about that are valuable for the Landscape Evolution Observatory. That includes water, energy, carbon, nitrogen, and the changing microbial community within the soil. You may not realize it, but the microbial community in the soil is critical to how our atmosphere works, the cycling of carbon and oxygen between air and atmosphere, and even the health of places like the rainforest that we saw before. We're standing at the top of one of the 3 hill slopes of the Landscape Evolution Observatory experiment. What we've done is we've taken crushed volcanic rock and we've put it in these trays along with all the sensors and samplers, and then we add rain and we look and see how the soil changes over time. This isn't very different than what we would expect to have to do on a place like Mars or some other moon or planet in the solar system. If you want to be able to grow food at large scale, you're going to have to figure out how to convert the rock into soil. You need to understand the water cycle, you need to understand how carbon and nitrogen and energy move through the system, and you need to understand the role of the microbial community. So very important in the rainforest, in the desert, in agricultural fields, is the microbes that live in the soil. And the microbes in this system change every time we add water to the system. So it's a very interesting example of understanding in detail the interactions, again, of all these components of Earth systems that we would need to understand not only to better understand our own planet, but be able to colonize and live at large scale on another distant planet.